Well, thanks for doing this. This is for Lybba, and I appreciate it very much. Tell me about public health and what your book's about and what you're passionate about.
So I've been an editor at Wired for nearly 10 years. And a couple of years ago, I decided to uh, go, and we're based here in San Francisco, and I decided to go across the bay over to Berkeley and get my master's in public health, which seemed perhaps a little strange. There's not a lot of people think public health is very low tech, and the Wired world is all glossy, high tech gadget stuff. So the opportunity I think we're at now is to use actually some really new and innovative tools of information technology to bring individuals together with new kind of ideas about healthcare and personal behavior that can have transcendent population level impact on health.
In other words, what key insights might be buried out there in the existing statistics, that kind of thing?
70, 80% of the diseases in this country and the mortality in this country could be attributable in some part to personal decisions. So these are the chronic diseases that so often beset us because of our lifestyle. The fact is, though, that the public health has known for a few years that what is effective at getting people to change their behavior are giving people some feedback, giving people a sense of where they stand and their progress towards goals, and then groups, kind of getting groups involved. And the
Right.
trick is that these approaches haven't really scaled. It's been very difficult to use the idea of feedback in groups across large populations because you kind of need to get people together in a room. Um, but that's changing now because of the information technology. We have social networks online where people can form disease communities or health communities. And you're able to kind of use these mechanisms of feedback and groups across information technology and to reach large numbers of people. And that's only possible like in the last couple of years.
Obviously, this is a brand new field, right? But the idea that the end user doesn't really have something to go to get there except to volunteer that information. In other words, if I'm in one of those studies on patients like me, I'm really just expected to volunteer my information. They're not actually providing me with best practices.
I talk about our personal health information as currency. So traditionally, when our health records are locked up in the doctor's office on paper records, there's very little we can do with it, and it becomes kind of something we want to keep locked up. But when you start being able to turn it into digital form and you start being able to contribute it and then get information back because of it, that's when it takes on a form of currency and becomes actually this thing that we can exchange and actually get a lot of value out of. So the way this works ideally is you're taking your personal information, that very specific information to an individual, and you're augmenting it or using it to help personalize the kind of overall generic data sets that we have. So one that is it kind of gives people a very clear example of how this works is this website called lifemath.net.
I don't know
Um,
that one. I'll have to check it out.
it's awesome. You enter a few little variables: your age, your gender, your whether you smoke or not, and it gives you a personalized list of screening tests you might consider, whether or not aspirin would work for you, and in fact it breaks it down to how many days of added life expectancy you would get from making a few small behavior changes.
Do you think people, when confronted with their own mortality, will choose to embrace it, or do you think it'll be hard to get adoption of what the promise of the genome and these larger data sets you're alluding to with lifemath.net mean? Do you think?
Right. So one thing that is important that people actually need to, one of the things that I think engaging with data and information will help people understand is that our health is not fate, right? It isn't like it's preordained. It isn't like it's just kind of we're on this path that will happen whether or not we care about it or not, or whether we take action or not. In fact, we can influence the path, we can influence our health, and we can take all sorts of actions at all sorts of opportunities. I mean, that's what I mean by a decision tree, right? It's the opportunity to take certain decisions and influence the course of events. And that's something that, we haven't really had so far. We haven't talked about our health in those terms. Our health is something that usually we react to and that goes wrong, and then we go to the doctor and we try to fix it. rather than trying to kind of improve it and build on it. And I think I'm hopeful that that is a new mindset that people will find appealing and empowering.
Are you an optimist for the future?
I'm an yes, I'm an optimist. I could not be an editor at Wired if I was not an optimist. That said, I think on some level we have hit bottom, right? I mean, obesity rates, for instance, have basically hit. There's 70% of the Americans are overweight or obese, and there were just figures that's plateaued, right? So we've basically gotten as fat as we can as a nation. Our healthcare system is pretty much ruined. We're almost bankrupt. I mean, there are many levels on which we have hit bottom. So I'm optimistic that the other direction is up. And I'm also optimistic that we have an opportunity with these tools, with the work that you're doing and the work that a lot of kind of entrepreneurs and the realization that we're at a moment here where we can start getting people engaged in a way that really will scale, right? We'll be able to reach more and more people with these ideas.
Well, great. Thank you for taking the time with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. My pleasure.